Hi, this is Joseph. This is another trade copier update. Today is January 26th. It's Thursday. So we're looking at the euro dollar. And I got a question today, a very good question. And it was about the trade copier and the settings with the lot size. So if you're a prospective uh, subscriber, you might be wondering, number one, what kind of trading style? How many trades can you expect? How many trades a day do I take? And what size of a stop loss? What size is the stop loss that I normally use? And that will give you an idea of what you could expect or what you should select as far as lot sizing, right? And whether or not you should go after a percentage of the account. So inside of the trade copier, there are a couple of different ways that you can set up the lot size. You can use a fixed lot size, like if you know already what you want to do, let's say it's 1.0 lot size, that you can do that. You set it up inside of the trade copier when you connect your account, and that is what will always be executed regardless of what I do on my end. So I'm executing my own trades in my own funded account. So if I'm, let's say, trading two or three standard lots and you only want one standard lot or even a half a standard lot or a quarter of a lot, whatever it is that you want, you can specify, you can set it up inside of the trade copier, and the trade copier will always execute what you select, but you can always change it. You can change it at any time. So as profits start to increase in your account, you can increase your lot size. Now you can also switch to a percentage option, which means instead of using a fixed lot size, you would then be using a percentage of the account. You can use 1%, 2%, whatever it is that you're comfortable with. But I don't recommend using that one until there's some equity built up in the account anyway. Now, the question that I got was, do I trade around the news? Because they thought that that might have an impact on the lot size. The person that asked me that question, they thought it might have an impact on the trades, and it can be pretty risky or pretty volatile when you're trading around the news. And sometimes people, the traders will want to cut back the lot size if I'm going to be news trading. Well, the answer to that question, first of all, is I can get a signal before the news is released. And sometimes I'm still in the trade when the news is released. And the result of the news will move price to my expected target anyway. If I'm wrong, it's very likely that if I get into the trade before the news and I'm wrong on the trade to begin with, regardless of the news may just turn it around and it would hit my stop anyway. So there are a couple of things that I want to show you here. First of all, this trade was set up just before the news, but it was the news this morning that drove price down to the expected take profit level anyway. So that's what typically happens, but I'm not looking to execute trades the split second that the news is released. That is the most important thing that I want you to know, is that I'm not a news trader. So I used to do that many, many, many years ago. I used to do that because it was fun. You can make a lot of money, you can lose a lot of money, and you never really know what kind of, there's a lot of slippage. You never know where you're going to get filled. Now, the problem with me trying to trade the news, even if I get a good fill, I have so many different subscribers that are using different brokers that there's no guarantee what fill they're going to get. And there are still some brokers out there that will freeze the data during the news, or they'll do all kinds of little things just to prevent their clients from trading. So I have no control over that. So I know that, and that's why I avoid trading during the news. So you'll see here that this was during the US economic news that was available this morning, but I got into the trade before the news was released. So this was a sell right here at 1.0894. All of my trades are 2-for-1. So once I identify where the stop loss is, I'm using a target that's twice the size of my stop loss. Now, if you look at this stop loss from 94 up here to 6 or 7, you can see that I'm using stop loss very often, and it'll vary to a certain degree. It's not always a fixed stop loss. Sometimes I'll have a 12-point stop loss. Sometimes I'll have a 17-point stop loss. And that's with all Forex trades. I'm not talking about US 30. I'm not talking about anything else, just Forex trades. So my stop losses are relatively small considering. I mean, there are some other services out there that will use 50 to 100 points, maybe even 150 pips stop loss. I don't do that. And I'm not talking about, like double counting or, if you're using micros or whatever. This is just from the entry that I see here on the charts to my stop loss. That is what I'm counting. And I always factor what my profit is based on where I closed out the trade. So my target again was a 2 for 1. Sometimes it'll continue a little bit further and I can get more out of the trade. So if I'm there right there in the moment, and I'm not looking at another chart and I see it go right through that or get ready to move through that take profit level, I'll take the take profit off and let it continue to move, or I'll adjust the take profit to a further level to see if I can maximize that trade. But they're all 2 for 1 trades. So that's a good thing. You want to know that if I have a loss, when I have winning trades, they're going to be twice the size of my loss. So these are just a couple of things that I want you to be aware of if you're considering using my trade copier. I use the word safe or reliable, things like that, and it's because of these little things. Number one, I don't trade the split second that the news is released. Sometimes I'm going to be in a trade before the news is released, and it's the news that will move it to my target. Number two, all of my trades are going to be 2 for 1, which is a good thing. So I just want you to know that that's something that I'm always out, on the lookout for. I'm aware of when the news is coming out. And very often when I get into a trade, let's say it's during the late London session or the early New York session, no one can really control how fast price is going to move. Sometimes we can get a pretty good idea that it's going to move pretty quickly. Other times it'll move like in the first 30-minute bar or something like that and then stop and then wait for the news and then it'll continue. And many different things happen every day, all of the time. So all I can do is manage each one of these positions. So this was a trade that worked out just fine, but I wanted you to see how it was the news that had an effect on price and drove it to my target, but it wasn't the news that helped me determine whether or not I should be in it. Now, we could always argue, and there's a lot of people that will go out there and they'll try to figure out which direction price is going to go even before the news is released. They're trying to be, play the fundamental game, right? They think they're fundamental traders, and you can do that with a little bit of practice, or quite a bit of practice, I should say. My system is purely technical, but I studied economic data for the last 22 years that I've been trading it. I read all the reports, I did all of that, but I find that I rely less and less and less on the news. I just need to be aware of when the news is going to be released, because nobody can really, control the outcome. And very often it's very difficult. It's a lot easier to determine direction with the technicals rather than to try to figure out where it's going to go because of the fundamentals and the news that's coming out. Sometimes you can get it right. Sometimes I've never really seen too many people do it effectively, consistently, and be able to trade off of it. Sometimes overall, on the big picture, they can get a direction of where the markets are headed, but then you've got to get down to the charts to execute your trade, right? You need to get a good entry. So I find that, and I've found this for many, many years, it's just a lot easier for me to just rely on my technical skill than trying to determine how the market's going to interpret the data so that we can figure out which direction the euro is going to move in and the dollar is going to head in, all of that. So it's a lot easier just to do it this way, and it's always worked out a lot better for me. So I'm actually looking at 8 different currency pairs. This is the main page that I look at, and then I break it down into each one of these different currency pairs, looking at 3 other additional charts with some of the specifics that I look for to get a valid entry. Now, I don't have trades on every single one of these currencies every day. Sometimes the yen might be a little more active, so I'd probably be trading either the dollar yen or the euro yen and the pound yen. Other days, the euro or the pound might be more active. And then some days it's pretty choppy and I'm just trading the dollar Swiss. It really, really depends. Now, the dollar Canadian, I don't really have too many trades there. I trade that on occasion. Same thing with the Australian dollar, on occasion. But my primary focus is the euro dollar, the pound dollar, and then I'll move over to the yen crosses sometimes. So just to give you an idea, that would be the reason why sometimes I'm going to have 1 or 2 or 3 trades one day, and then other days it could be a lot more active and I could have 5, 6, or 7 trades. And again, all of these trades are going to be executed into your MT4 account, whether you're using your own personal account or you're using a funded account.